The need for a new campaign is very important, particularly in these days and times. In the 1960s, when Dr. King's original campaign was launched, a lot of people felt that legislation would be the key to the success for poor and black people in this country. And a lot of legislation was passed. We had the Civil Rights Act, we had the Fair Housing Act, we had job and employment legislation passed. Well, legislation doesn't solve what's in people's hearts. And so today, when we look at poverty, when we look at racism, when we look at inequality in this country, all three of those areas are just as bad now as they were, if not worse, than they were then. So on a percentage basis, the number of poor people in this country is the same, if not higher. The inequality, income inequality, and wealth inequality between African Americans and white Americans is higher now than it was in the 1960s. When we look at racism in this country, racism is now manifesting itself again the same way it did back in the 60s, whether we look at voter suppression, whether we look at police brutality and police killings in this country, the police killing unarmed African American men and women, when we look at the rate of incarceration in this country, all of those things have gone up dramatically. And so there now is a need, a new call for a moral awakening in this country, because we have not made nearly the progress that many had expected and hoped that we would have made based upon the legislative progress that we made back in the 60s. And also, what we're finding is a lot of the legislation that was passed and was proven to be very beneficial for poor people as well as people of color in this country, conservatives through their neoliberal policies are unraveling, unwinding, and overturning a lot of that legislation, which is making things exponentially worse.